Look guys, so I'm doing a video on UNBOUND with the RTX 3060 Ti. We're starting with 1080p at the ultra settings. Alright, let's jump into it. Alright, playing the game at 1080p and at the max settings or the ultra settings. Here it is. We're going to be getting 80 FPS with a 70% GPU usage. So I'm using a 3700X here. I have tried this game out with the 5800X that I was borrowing. Unfortunately, the video files got corrupted, so I can't use it obviously. So I'm kind of stuck using a 3700X right now. But inside the cities, we're getting around 80 FPS, up to 90 FPS, and once we leave the cities, we will get around 100 to 110 FPS. That's where the CPU usually just caps out. So let's go and drive out of the city real quick. This game does run quite well once you get it going. I haven't had too many crashes on this card yet. I had a couple last night at 4K when I was trying out DLSS, but other than that, it's been running perfectly fine. No stuttering, no lagging. Using the 3080, it was a nightmare. It was crashing after any setting that I tweaked, pretty much. If it was running at 1440p or 4K, enabling DLSS would crash it. Changing the settings, anything, it would just crash it. It was pretty awful. But this card is doing much better. This game is very CPU intensive, so if you've got a weaker CPU than what I'm running right here, you will see worse FPS, especially in the inner cities. But if you've got a better CPU, obviously you have a 30% GPU headroom, so you'll be getting around 110 to 120 FPS. And the highest I've seen it hit with the 5800X was around 130 FPS. Here I'm sitting at 7.4 gigs at ultra settings, which is quite high. We only got 600 megabytes left over. This card only has 8 gigs, so just keep that in mind. And at 1440p and 4K, should be fine. But maybe at 4K we might run into some issues if it keeps climbing up. Alright, playing the game at 1440p. Let's jump into the settings real quick. One more time. There we are. Ultra settings. Same as before. So before this, when I switched the resolution from 1080p to 1440p, the game bugged out. And I was only getting 40 FPS, which isn't really right. This is a 1440p card, and it can handle playing those newer games at 1440p 60 FPS at medium to highish settings. So when you get 40 FPS in a game that isn't super GPU intensive, it's kind of weird. So I restarted the game, and look at that, we're getting 80 FPS now. Keep in mind, when you drive to the inner cities, you will still drop down into the 70s or even the 60s with this CPU anyway. If you got a more powerful CPU like I said before, you will hold a stable 80 FPS for the most part until you run into a GPU intensive situation. That's when it will drop down. But for the most part, 70 to 80 FPS is what you're going to be expecting from this card at 1440p ultra settings, which is quite nice. The game doesn't stutter or have any lag spike issues at all. Running beautifully. Hasn't crashed yet at all either for me. Yeah, this game looks beautiful though. At 1440p, that's where it truly shines. 4K, it's even better, but 1440p, it looks so nice, especially when it rains. This game and the rain effects just look so good. The reflections look amazing. You can use DLSS as well at this point. We are getting 70 to 80 FPS on average, so if you want to get more, instead of the 90s or even the 100s, and you got a more powerful CPU for it, then you can definitely do that. I'll try out quality and balance mode in a second, but normally they look pretty decent. Alright, this is a good time for us to go ahead and try DLSS. Let's go ahead and do that right now. I will restart the game so we know it applies, because this game's already struggling a little bit with it. Alright, and here we are after a quick restart. We are now using DLSS at the quality. Getting 80 FPS though. So again, getting CPU bottlenecked in the cities. We gotta really get out of here to see any FPS improvements with the CPU. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. As you can see, GPU is sitting at 70% usage, so we got a 30% GPU headroom. So if you got a better CPU, you're gonna be sitting at 120, 130 FPS pretty much at this point. Which is what you're gonna be getting at 1080p ultra settings, which is quite nice, because the clarity improvement is definitely worth it. As you can see, the game is looking quite good still. Oh, I was just trying to hit that ramp. Come on, man, let me get that ramp. As you can see, the game is looking really nice, super sharp, can't really see any blurring. The image does look a little bit softer compared to native 1440p, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. It's definitely better than native 1080p, and FPS is pretty much the same as native 1080p as well, so no trade-offs. I guess a slight trade-off of getting a softer image, but other than that, it's very good. Getting 120 FPS right now, living in the city. GPU is still sitting at 87%. Now it's getting fully utilized. Sitting at 104 FPS. Very nice. Growing wings, let's go. Oh no. Oh no. Lost control of the car and I flew into the sky with my wings. So yeah, not too bad. With this CPU, I wouldn't go above quality. Obviously, we're getting bottlenecked in the cities anyway. But I'll try balance mode just so we can see the quality differences between the two. But from memory, it should look just as good as quality, maybe slightly worse. Alright, and here we are with the balanced DLSS. Let's just get out of here quickly, leave the city. The GPU is sitting at 65% at its most, or its peak I guess, and lowest is around 60%. So very close to quality mode. But let's leave the city so we can actually see the true FPS. Might be getting bottleneck outside of the cities as well now at this point, to be honest. Let's get out of here. I'll take it right here. It's kind of weird how this game is having a couple of issues with just applying settings properly. You gotta fully restart the game with anything you touch. It's just so whack. I don't get it. Hopefully it'll get fixed up in the next couple of months, but we definitely need a day one patch. Alright, now leaving the city, we're getting 107 FPS, so very similar to what we had before. GPU sitting at 90%. Occasionally it does go up to 95%, but that's very rare. Normally sitting at 85 to 91% usage. But FPS is a little bit better, sitting at 110 FPS, but we can definitely go up to 120 easily at this point. And the quality differences is not a lot. You know, the game's looking just as good as quality or native 1440p. Again, slightly softer, but other than that, it looks beautiful. It looks very usable, and it's definitely a viable choice if you want to get high FPS at 1440p with this card. Alright, I think it's time for us to push it up to 4K and see how we do there. I'm gonna go ahead and floor it though. No! Oh, great, I just ruined it. Okay, 4K time, let's go. And here we are, 4K ultra settings, getting 46 FPS. About what I got last night, so seems about right. So sitting in the low 40s up to the low 50s is what you're gonna be getting at native 4K. Quite decent, honestly, since we're playing the game on ultra settings. I guess you could play at medium or low settings as well if you want to play the game at native 4K and get 60 FPS. But I haven't tested that out, so I can't really confirm it. I think ideally for this preset, you want to go ahead and use DLSS because it looks just as good as native 4K. Basically no flaws at all. And hopefully we should be able to get 60 FPS out of it as well. Because we only need to get 20 extra FPS, which doesn't seem too bad. We do get some dips into the mid-30s, it seems like as well, but again, shouldn't be too bad to get mid-50s to low 60s experience. So we'll see how we go there. VRAM is sitting at 7.7 gigs again, so it hasn't really moved, which is surprising. Normally when you play at 4K, your VRAM does climb a little bit from 1080p anyway, and right here it's sitting pretty much the same as what it was before. Kind of surprising, but what can we do? The game is feeling quite fine. I'm using keyboard and mouse right now, and the handling of the car is fine. It's not as responsive as something like 70 to 100 FPS obviously, but it is decent enough that it's still definitely playable. Alright, and here we are with DLSS at the quality at 4K. It looks perfect pretty much. Can't really see any flaws that would make me think that it's not running at 4K native. FPS is sitting in the 60s now. Amazing. We gained what, 20 FPS from what we had at native 4K. Quite amazing really. Dropping down into the low 50s obviously. Can't hold a consistent 60. But still a good improvement. We're close enough to 60 FPS that I think for the... Ooh, I'm done for. I think we're close enough to 60 FPS anyway that I think for most people, they can't really tell a difference between 55 FPS to 65 FPS. It will feel very similar to each other. So we disable the FPS counter. This is definitely usable. And the responsiveness is pretty much back. I'm going to go ahead and use balanced DLSS anyway. Hopefully we can get 60 FPS with that. We're so close to it now. We need an extra 7 FPS. Or 10 FPS I guess. Occasionally we do dip down into the high 40s like we are right now. But for the most part, we're sitting in the low 50s up to the mid to high 50s. VRAM has dropped down to 7.4 gigs now from 7.7. Finally a difference. But the game is basically running the same, so no difference there at all. Let's go push it up to DLSS balanced and see what we do there. Alright, balanced DLSS is doing much better. We gained an additional 10 FPS from what we had before at quality at the start anyway. Let's see if we can maintain that 60 FPS mark, I guess. Let's drive 7.7 gigs of VRAM again. Climb right back up. Unfortunate, but I don't get it, man, at this point. Okay, 60 FPS, still being able to hold it. Right here we're sitting at 50 to 40 FPS. Doing pretty good. I want to go as fast as I can. Oh, I just killed someone. Sorry, boss. I'm going to go ahead and go to the right. I think we can leave the city quicker here. And the quality looks just as good as the quality preset, DLSS, or native 4K. So I think this is the way to go. Or we just had some dips into the high 50s. Ruined it. You ruined it, game. But I think regardless, this is the way to go. I think performance mode, we might be losing too much quality at this point. In some games, you can get away with using performance DLSS, and the game will still look just as good as native. But I don't know. I'll try it out anyway. But I think, for me personally, I would just go with balanced DLSS. You can look it down to 60 FPS if you want, but you can get 70 FPS pretty much on average with some dips into the 60s. And very rarely you would drop that into the 50s, the high 50s. Alright. Alright, finally, last preset. Let's go try out performance mode and wrap up the video from there. Alright, now with performance DLSS, we're getting 70 to 80 FPS now on average, so quite a decent improvement. The quality, honestly, looks pretty good as well. Can't really see any blurriness or any weirdness going on still. Looks very sharp. So you can get away with using performance DLSS if you want. This should keep you away from 50 FPS, hopefully for the most part. I don't think I'm going to fall into the 50s anymore with this. We're sitting very comfortably at 70 FPS with occasional dips into the mid 60s. Wow, almost at 90 FPS for a second. Alright, I think that's it for the video, guys. Made it this far. Appreciate you guys. It was a great see, and I like and I'll put you on the push as well. See you next time.